Hi there guys, says one speaking again. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for clicking on this video. This is the fourth part of my tutorial series. Last time we talked about intersecting shapes, but today we're gonna make this one. As you can tell, we're gonna put some 3D letters and make them intersect and see what we can play around with. Alright guys, first I want to explain something. What you see on the screen now, we got three letters. This one, of course, is the S. As you can tell, it goes like this. Then we got our next one, that's the letter A. Like this, goes something like so. Then we got the next letter, that's the letter, I'm gonna put this over here, Z. And that should be like this. Now, how do I get to those shapes? Do I go from a regular S, put my references around it, then put it into perspective? I never do that. I always go straight into 3D. Because if you would put this letter as it is now, and you would make it flat, I actually did that, and it looks like crap. I back engineered my own letter S. I'm gonna bring it up right here. That's the reference. I got the S already. And then I drew around my reference and I back engineered it to what it should look like. Now I drew in my references and I basically went, let's say, this point to this point. I should be somewhere over here to across the purple line, actually a little bit shorter. Let's say so. The next point should be somewhere over here. And I use all my references to decide all the points. Now I already did that. And this is what it looks like. So my drawing, my letter S drawing, back engineered looks like this. And that explains why I directly go into 3D. It gives me more control and more fun to play around with. That doesn't mean, on the other hand, that these references cannot be helpful to us. But let's just say that you do want to go from a 2D shape to a 3D shape. Now I drew in a quick Z. Doesn't look like much, but just something. Let's say I want this shape, I like this shape, and I want to put it from 2D to 3D. I told you last video, no, actually the one before that, how we do that. Let's say it looks like this. Now I got my 2D shape into 3D. But I still don't like the shape. There's nothing that holds you back now to just go over this and say, I'm gonna just, let's say I wanna go this a little bit further out. And then you can start adding on, maybe leaving away a couple of things. And then at least you got a reference. You already got the idea down of where your 3D part should be. And then you can go maybe exaggerate a couple of shapes. But this is where the creative process comes in. That's up to you. Now I'm gonna talk about a specific design, one of my latest that I made, and that's this one right here. And I would like to talk to you how I came to this part of the drawing, the letters themselves. How I designed this, we're not gonna talk about the shapes. I might do that later on in a later video, but for now, let's just talk about the letters. And how I go about it is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It's a method I taught myself back in the day, because back in the day when I started doing graffiti, there was no YouTube. Actually, to be perfectly honest with you, there was no internet either. So I taught myself this kind of process that I use now still nowadays to get my drawings in. The first thing I do is I split up my letters. I got the S, I got the A, and I got the Z. But I don't want one block and make it look like 3D. That's the style you see very often. Nothing wrong with that, but I want every letter by itself in the 3D part. So I want the S, I want the A, and I want the Z all on a different perspective actually. Now I'm gonna pull away this picture and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a block for the S, give it a certain perspective, maybe a block for the A, give it a certain perspective, and I'm gonna do the same for the letter Z with again another perspective. And just basically all on a different layer. Now if you work on paper, you can make some sketches with the letter S, you can make some sketches with the letter and one with the letter Z, and then combine them later on. But that's up to you. I'm gonna delete this. And let's say I'm gonna draw a cube. I already did that, but I'm gonna bring it up. I'll draw a cube for the letter S. This will be the front side. The red is the front side of my letter S. And as you can tell, it disappears that way, but it also gets narrower over here because it fades into distance below. This would be my 3D part of the letter S. Now bear in mind, you don't see me use any vanishing points. That's what I told you last videos, I eyeball my perspective. Because the kind of work I do, vanishing points is very difficult to use. I do use them for the 3D parts mostly, but to design the fronts, I barely ever use vanishing points. But I keep them in mind, they're here. They're here, I just don't draw them out. That's something I don't do. But for the letter S, I want it to go that way. And I want the center point here. So I might work that the A fits somewhere over here. And maybe the Z vanishing to the A as well. Now let me show you. Let's say the letter A, I'll put it somewhere over here. So imagine an A somewhere over here. Draw the S in real quick. And I told you I want the Z to go towards the A. Let me bring that up. Those are my 3 blocks. Now you can already tell there's a certain flow to this. Even it's just blocks, but there's a certain flow to it. Because my eye wants to go into the drawing. All to the focal point. And the focal point would be here. And that's my letter A. Now let's say I bring up the letter S. I'm gonna remove those cubes. And that will be my shape. The basic shape. Now you can go out your box. You can stay within your box. You can make it. You can do whatever you want. This is freestyle. You do whatever you want. This is graffiti. Let's say I bring up again my block for the A. But I'm gonna remove the S. So this is the A. Now this is a different story. Because there's no clear 2D shape to my A. And how I go about this process is I'm gonna zoom it in like this. And I'm just thinking like, alright, I like this. I'm gonna get to the very basics of this drawing. And that would be my front, but I want it to disappear in the back as well. So I don't really keep in mind my box anymore. And that's something, that's what I'm talking about. It's just freestyle. And normally, if I did want it to keep it in the box, I would keep my last leg of the A just a little bit out the box, but not too much. But I didn't do that here. I thought to myself, what if I would extend the A and bring it to the front? What would happen? And it's just trial and error. I liked it. I liked the way it was going. So I decided to go with it. So but still this box, it still teaches me a thing or two about where my 3D part should vanish into. So let's say we would have a VP here. Now note, this one is too cut in. It's too exaggerated, but that's what I love to do. That's more like a comic style. They exaggerate their perspective always. And that's what I tried to do here. But that's just a little bit on the A. The box is just a reference to keep in mind where my focal point should be. Now I'm going to bring back up my box for the S itself. And I'm going to bring up the box for Z. And there you're going to see that I really exaggerated my shape. Most of the Z is right into the rectangle where it should be, but you can tell this one is all out the box. But now we got our basic setup, and from here on you can just go play on, but you see there's a certain flow in this design. And that's just something you can play around with. You can move your boxes around. Let's say I'm gonna make the S flat, like something like so, and make it disappear that way. Then I put the A maybe over here and play around with that. And then you can go, let's say, even crazier, get from the Z all the way over here. Then this would be 3D part, this would be... And if you just play around with boxes and you put letters in them, you can get some very interesting results. It's just something that I still do today. I always do this. Just practice some cubes and draw some letters into it. Eventually you're gonna find some shapes that for you are worth working with and building upon those. Now I hope that I taught you a thing or two. I hope I explained my process of drawing my 3D letters a little bit better, so you can now just go along and try it for yourself. Draw some cubes in different shapes, fill them up with the letters you designed, and I bet you're gonna find some interesting shapes. Now to touch on the previous tutorial, we're just gonna go for the sake of it, intersect the A, not the box, but the letter A into our S. And why we can use those boxes that I drew in before. So you see my S is the basic shape, and the A, following my perspective, my A goes that way and it touches on the S. Now how we gonna intersect those? That's when my box that I drew in here comes in very handy. Because let's say if I do gonna draw my vanishing points from the S cube, I'm gonna zoom out so you can see it. And if I take my vanishing points, then now I know my vanishing point is off the page, but that doesn't matter. I can choose, gonna zoom in again, now where my A is going to intersect. And I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna draw, it would intersect here and it would intersect here, because it respects the box of the S. Now I know that, I can already tell there's a couple of parts of the A I can just remove. I can remove the lower part because that goes straight into my S. And I will show the back side of it. So I know this can all go. But the same for the bottom. So I can delete that as well. And there you go. But of course, you can tell this isn't right. And something's off here as well. I'm gonna solve that real quick. And now we need to follow the perspective of the A. Now if I bring up my box, that would be my perspective, but I don't actually need it. So I'm gonna just remove it again. And I'm gonna pick vanishing points for the A. So a little bit lower. So you see, I still use vanishing points. You see, it still follows. This one here is a little bit off. That's my exaggeration. We don't worry about that. But now at least we can cut off our A and make it intersect with the S. So I'm gonna do that real quick. That would be here. On the lower side as well. It ends at the S. And now we got our intersection in place. Now what we can do next is remove a little bit more of our A that we won't see. So there you go. I'm gonna remove the box of the S so at least we can see what I'm doing. I don't need those boxes anymore. I'm gonna clear this out. Now of course my A overlaps now. So what I definitely know is that these lines, they're not visible. The lines from the letter S are not visible. So I can go in there as well and delete those. Something like this. And there you have it. It's intersecting now. So for now, the last letter, let's bring up the letter Z. We're gonna make that intersect with our letter A over here. Now I'm gonna bring up the box again for my letter Z, and I can tell it goes that way and vanishes off in the distance. But that means that over here, it will intersect in an angle. That's something to keep in mind. If your box is on a certain angle, the intersection will be at a certain angle as well. So let's grab some vanishing points for our front side. Already drew them in. And decide my intersection point, where the Z goes into our A. Let's say I want to intersect it over here. That's fine. And we're going to decide the point where it comes out of our A. And let's say that will be somewhere over here. Then now I follow the shape of our A until we get our intersection. Now, this little part needs to go because it intersects the side between this. Once we got that established, I'm gonna thicken it up just a little bit. Now we got that. I'm gonna remove the vanishing point. I'm gonna remove the box so everything comes a little bit more obvious. And now I'm gonna go in and delete what I cannot see from the letter Z. And that would be, this would be invisible because it's all behind our A. Now of course, if we do this, all this from the letter A would be gone because it's in our letter Z. So we just go in and we delete what we don't actually need. Just like so, very quickly. And there you have it. Now my shape intersects. But it's now you can tell that this shape goes into an angle. And that's normal because our Z goes that way and our A goes that way. Now a little bit more about the style that I do is I create the letter S and that's 3D. And then I play around with other shapes, T shapes, and they are 2D. They are flat, they don't have thickness to them. Sometimes I do, but in this case I didn't. And that's something I like to play around with too. And these shapes, let's say for the letter S, I'm gonna bring it up. They follow my cube. The cube gives me an idea where those shapes need to be and where those intersect with my base shape. My 3D S is cut down by 2D shapes. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you liked it, I hope you learned something, or at least I explained how I get my 3D letters down. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.